Okay, so I'm just going to give you the installation instructions on how to set up the CarTrain hybrid and all-electric vehicle trainer. So in the packet that you've got, you should have had the CarTrain unit itself, operation instructions, CD, and some of the various measuring devices that you'll need. What you'll also have is a set of overlay masks as well, so I'll explain those a little bit later. Okay, the first thing we need to do is have yourself a PC or a laptop that will be used for the system, as we have a LabSoft program on this CD, which is the theoretical side and also contains all of the experiments that you need to do on the system. So we'll set that up first. Okay, now so I'm going to show you the installation of the software. So here you have the included CD that you found, so just put that into your computer and you'll get the automatic window come up to start the setup. So don't worry, this is just a German computer, that's why it comes up in German, but otherwise just press the setup installation. It'll ask for confirmation. Now you get the different versions here, so you want to install English version USA. Just click next. You've just got the general information. Gives you a little bit of information about what to do, so there's bit of info on read solutions, but I'll go through that in a little bit more detail shortly as well. So we click next. Just let it go through where it wants to. You can change it around if you like, but I find it's just best to install it as it is. Don't need any special requirements for the computer. It's all relatively simple. You may need to install Flash. Okay, this section here, you will also need to install the drivers, because we've got all of the included, not all of them, but we've got some included measuring devices within the system, so that we have an actual connection between the hardware and the software. So here it's installing the drivers, so let that go through. We also need to install the drivers here as well. And that's your installation finished. Okay, once you've installed LabSoft, you'll either find, I've pinned it to the start test here, or you can find it within the list, or you can search through on your little search function down the bottom there. Either way it'll come up. You get this little language selection, because we've got a lot of different languages that it's offered in. You can make that go away if you want to just hold it, keep it in English. So click OK. Now depending on which type of installation, once we click OK, this is where we get the user login. And I'll show you that in a second, but just to click OK and start, you can see now that we have the LabSoft course installed on your computer. Okay, so what we have there is just one user, and you can have users for every student in your class if you want. So I'll show you how to do that right now as well. Now if you go to the CD that's still in your DVD drive here, you'll find this here. This is the contents of the CD. So the Lucas Nuller software on the drive. So this was the setup that we used before, but what we're going to look for now is a program called Manager. Now Manager is a program that allows us to create the users that can use the system. So if you look at Tools, go inside here, go to Manager, and then we can start this program. You can either click and drag that onto your desktop if you want, or just run it from the CD. Now there might be a good idea to run it from your CD because you don't necessarily want the students to have access to this. Okay, so click there, Run Manager. So it will ask for permission to make changes on your computer. Click yes. Okay, so this manager is part of a much bigger program called Classroom Manager, which we also sell as an extra, where you can get results to the students. You can create changes to any of the courses. You can create new courses with a program called Editor, and that's part of the package called Classroom Manager. This one here is the free base section that comes with every CD, so you can at least run it and create users. So here is the overview of the installation that you've just created. Don't need to do anything just here. And we have here on the side here groups, users, and courses. Okay, so you just have one course installed at this stage. You see it right there. And here we have the users. So what we can do is we can create a new user. So this is the login for the user. So in this case, the login will be my name, Daniel. You can use student identification numbers, anything you like here, just as long as someone can do it. Students can do it if you like. Anything's possible. Oh, go to the next one. Don't have a member of a group yet, but what you can do is you can click here, all. Now the folder for the user data, what we need to do is we can find whether you can install this anywhere you like. You can install it on the desktop or so. We have a what's it called, like a default folder where that normally goes. So we have this here, users, so we can just click on there and that will put the user data for each of the students within there. So you can see that program files x86 ln for Lucas Nuller, LabSoft users, and you can just run through that here. If you have any other users, you can add them at this stage as well. You don't have to put a last name at this stage with the group. Might be a good chance to show the group here. So what we can do, you can see now those users are added here. What I'll do is I'll add a new group. So call it class 1 and then class 2. And so what I can do is I can have Daniel as part of class 1. Click here, put class 2. You can see Daniel's now gone, and I can add Paul. What we need to do now though is press save. Save that information. So I'll go to the users and I'll install. Now we can also just cut and paste this here. So that's all done and easy. Press save there. Like I said, you can add didn't mean to do that. Numbers like swaddling on 5253. Whatever the ID you want there, you can add. Really doesn't matter as long as you put the user data there. Okay, press save. So Now, I'll go back to LabSoft. I'll just close that again. So every time you close it, you get the chance to log in. So now I'll change that to Daniel. What happened? Okay. So what I need to also do is click which course that you're doing. So class 1, class 2. So in this case, it's no big deal because we've got just one course, but we offer around about 140 different courses, so you can select exactly what you want the student to see. So we click that again, and we go back to LabSoft. So you see Daniel. You don't need a password. Password is only if the system will run without it, so there's no need to worry about it. And you can see now we have the course. If for some reason the students forget their password, if they do put a password in and forget it, what you can do here is go to change password, and it will actually delete the password that exists for that user. It said the data wasn't acceptable because there is no password. But if you just click that, it will delete the password and they get a chance to rewrite it as they like. Okay, so that's how to use Manager together with LabSoft. Okay, so the system here, or the software, has various uses. So there is a theoretical component, but there's also a practical component to the software as well. What I recommend is that the students go down step by step, and they can find out what they need to know about the system. So it gives you a little bit of introduction about the system. And then we've got the beginning of the actual learning system. So we start back up here. A little bit of information on why we have electric vehicles. So, and you can see here, this is the setup. We've got a chance to do some questions and answers within the page itself. And whenever you click on the check answers, you get the feedback on your answers. So similar throughout the course, you can see that sometimes picture, a bit of information. The course itself, the structure that you see within the course here is built upon the ASE L3. So you can see here, this is the various topics within the course. That's exactly the way you see it in the the L3 specialist test, and so that's the way we've built it and worked through the curriculum to build this LabSoft course. So as I said, it's really worthwhile for the students to go step by step. You don't want them jumping around too much because they will miss out on various things. So you see we've got lots of pictures, some animations, and even videos throughout the course. And then also at the end of each of these chapters, we've got a chapter quiz that then checks the student on what they've just learnt. Sometimes we've got little animations like this as well, interactive. As I said, the most important thing here is that the students go step by step through so that they don't miss out on anything. What we also have included in this is actual practical tasks, and by this I mean practical tasks on real vehicles. So you can see that here with practical tasks written in the structure of the course here, and you can access those just by clicking on the icon on the screen. That comes up as a PDF on the course. So the students can print those out and draw and fill them out for you to give to the teacher at the end of once they've done. So you can see here, it tells you exactly what it is. So identify hybrid vehicle components or electric vehicle components, etc. And they're throughout the course for the various systems. So you see here battery systems, and here we have a practical task for the battery system, and that's read high voltage battery scan tool data. That's where the student will then need to fill out, for example, if the data is available, what is it, have they been able to access it, any other information, and any DTCs that are within that vehicle. What we also have is some experiments, and they're also show you how to set up the experiment on the hardware. Okay, so that's what we'll show you right now. Okay, so the system here, as you can see, we've got two electric motors here. Now this is not represented in MG1, MG2, as you might expect. And you might even ask, okay, why is there two cables for a three-phase motor? These are in fact three-phase motors, but all three phases are running within one cable. The second cable here is running for the data systems for like the resolver and the interlocks. Okay, we've got the battery system down here, which is 4 12-volt batteries. So these are batteries that can be changed out very easily, very cheaply. You can buy those at any electronics store. We've got the service disconnect plug down here, and we've also got a high voltage inspection point, so where you'll be able to take the measurement to make sure that the voltage is dissipated before you work on the vehicle. Also got over this side a charging point. If you have the US version, you'll see a slightly different connector. Here we've got the Type 2. For the US, we supply one with a Type 1 connector. We've got the touchscreen here for showing the system. To put the system in operation, just press the main button here. That gets the system running. There's a computer system running up here for the interaction that you'll see shortly. And then we've also got these overlay masks. So the overlay masks then show you the different operation of the various types of vehicle available. And they can be swapped out simply by pulling out the bridge connectors and putting the plug in, and you can see then the various plugs here. Okay, once the system's all booted up, have the ignition key here. Touchscreen will show you the various modes that we have. So once the system is driving, it'll show you the various energy paths through the vehicle, what's happening with the generation of the, or if any of the motor generators are operating as a generator or as a motor. We have various modes here as well. So acceleration, driving flat, so not using much load, and then driving downhill or using the brakes, so for recuperation or regenerative braking. And you can see how the system changes here. Maybe able to see up in the top corner here is also the battery level. So we can adjust the battery and see what happens when the battery goes flat. So it's usually below 5%, and then generation will occur as well. So adjust vehicle speed with this one, battery on this side here. Okay. Now, I'll show you how to set up the animation that it was shown here. So, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it. So down in this corner, we have a USB connection that's connected to your computer, and we have this measurement interface that we have here. So the two cables that I have in my hand are connected to the measuring device, and so we can take all measurements that we need to take on the PC that we've just installed all of the software. Okay, so we'll just run the installation again, so that tells us which bridge connectors we need to install here, and it tells us which connections that we need to put in. So connect up here to the battery, and then it tells us up here instruments. So we've got various instruments such as oscilloscope, but here we're asked for voltmeter A. If you want any of the instruments to be bigger, you just double click up here. So you can see here 49 volts coming from the battery. If you have an oscilloscope, so we see here 100 volts per division, so we're running it just below 50. You can click and drag that into any oscilloscope and run and answer the questions as required. So the same goes for all of the different experiments that are throughout the course as well. So for instance, you'll see here experiment for the DC to DC converter. Similar function. So now we use the two-channel oscilloscope. Okay, so the same format, see the animation and then the results below. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is one of the fault finding or diagnostics fault finding that we're going to do on the system. So you can see up here also, we've got a little box that you can lock. So up to you again as the teacher what you want to do with the key. Best is to hide it, obviously. You've got a couple of different switches in here. Down the bottom are fuses. I've never seen the fuses blown on this system, but you get some spare fuses in the system if you do require them. Again, all of this is explained in the operating manual that you have. Up in the top right hand side here, you've got a charge function, which is very useful for charging these batteries. It's an internal charging or charger. It's a good idea to keep that turned on for around about an hour every week. So if you're going on holidays or something, it's also a good idea to turn it on if someone can turn it on while you're away. The one down here, MU, is the measuring unit. So for some reason, if the system hangs up as in gets stuck or something, you can switch it off here, but it saves turning the whole system off. Again, I've never had to use it, but it's there as a function. The rest of the switches that we have here, so there's 7 in total, are for fault finding. So we've got various faults that can be used. So there's a motor fault, battery fault, inverter fault, insulation, shielding, and potential equalization cable faults. So what I'll do is I'll just show you to go through one of these now, is an insulation fault, and see what happens. So I just need to reset it because I just had the battery disconnected, but you can see here when the system runs as normal, we can see the driver's display. Now what happens when I click on the insulation fault? So giving the student the procedure, now this is also covered in the theoretical side of the course as well, so they'll understand how to use the insulation tester, but now they're at the point to actually do it. You can see down here we've got a little OBD connector, so you can click on there and it tells us that the insulation resistance is too low. So we have to then go through and find where is the insulation resistance. So there's a breakthrough somewhere. Okay, so one of the things that the system's really good for is simulating a shutdown. So what do we need to do to shut down the system? So of course we want to do an insulation test, and so the measuring device that you get delivered with the unit is also an insulation tester. But the system here, so in order to do the insulation test, you have to do the shutdown. Okay, so this is where we really want to train the students that they're doing the right thing, and you as a teacher can really follow what they're doing. So you've got the gloves. If you've got the US version, you'll have the US version of the gloves that have the leather over glove with it as well. Same thing, same deal. Still rated to 1000 volts or whatever the local laws are. Okay, so we need our PPE, personal protective equipment. We need to shut down the system correctly. So the first thing we need to do is to remove the ignition key, or if it's a smart key, we want to remove it totally from the vehicle. But in this case with the key, we can put it in our pocket, or if you have a lock box, you can put it inside the lock box as well. So from there, we want to make sure that our gloves are also correct. So you can go through to the various testing methods, either with the squish test, try and squeeze out any air to see if you find any leaks, or you can use the real equipment if you have it. So once that's done, we also want to test our equipment. So we can go on a 12 volt battery and test that on a 12 volt battery. I don't have one right here with me, but you can do that in the workshop or in the classroom if you got one. Test it, because what you want to do is make sure that this is actually testing voltage, part of the live test, and it's explained in the course as well. Okay, so once that's done, the ignition's turned off, we can then go through and remove the service plug. So the gloves have been tested. Now, the system is entirely safe for students, absolutely no problem, but we're trying to create a culture of safety. So we want the students to go through all of the different steps to make sure that when they go to a real vehicle, they're staying safe. Okay, so we remove the service plug. Again, put it in your pocket or in a safety lockout box if you have one. So this here is our inspection point. So every vehicle should have one of these where you can go and measure to make sure that the voltage has dissipated. And that's where we go along. And I test here. Okay, I have 0 volts on here. Now I go back again to a 12 volt battery and test it again to make sure that I have 12 volts come up here, because I don't want a false negative telling me that there's 0 volts when in fact there's still 300 volts here. It's a little bit of backup insurance. Once we've done that, we've confirmed that there's 0 volts in the system. Now I can take my gloves off and the system is safe. Okay, so somewhere along here we found out there was an insulation resistance or breakout of the high voltage to the chassis. So somewhere on the motor. So what we can do here with our multimeter, we can measure the voltage as we just did, but we can also then use it as a insulation tester. And so what we need to do there is we're testing to ground. Now you can also, for the students, you can also show them just with the ohm meter. So if I set it to ohms first, we can see that nothing happens. It's because an ohm meter doesn't push through enough voltage to actually break through the insulation as the high voltage does. Now, of course, on a real vehicle, we need to remove the cables to each of the inverter and the motor to do that. We're doing this in a short way. It's about how to use the system, not how to remove cables, which you can do on any vehicle. So we can see that an ohm meter doesn't work for finding insulation faults. So I can switch it then to 1 kV, 1000 volts, and we put 1000 volts through the system. The system doesn't beep straight away. What it is, you have to build up, press the test button first, and what that does is it builds up the voltage inside the condensers internally. So you might just have to press it once and then it tests. Once we get 0, okay, there's no breakthrough to ground. So the next one, again, 0 volts. And here we can see now that there is a connection through the two. Okay, so that's telling us that on this third phase of the motor generator is the break in the insulation. Okay, once the student has found that, they've shown it to the teacher, they've used the instrument, teacher can come along and then go, okay, done, switch it off. Now the student now needs to put the system back into operation. So reverse of where it was. Now we can install so this system, this point here on Toyota Prius, for instance, is under the inverter. Put the service plug back in. So reinitializing the vehicle. So you can see the fault is still there. Now we come here, press reset, and everything's back to normal again. Okay, so you're able to test the student, making sure that they can depower the system, do some fault finding, and then put the system back into operation again. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to show you was how to check all of the answers. So of course it's a lot of information here. There's probably around 20 to 40 hours worth of reading to do in this course throughout the whole thing. We've even got electrical fundamentals, so a few little games, you know. So, and almost 200 questions and answers throughout the system, so it gets a little bit to expect the teacher to know everything that's within here. So what we have is a way to read the answers or get the solutions. So just be very careful when you do this that you're using your login, because what it does is it replaces all of the answers throughout the course for the correct ones. So the way you do that is go to Options and then Read Solutions. And so we need to browse through to the CD that you've got here. And with all the information on here, so we've got the English course is ENU. We've got the US course, which is the one we installed, so we go to the solutions here. We click OK, and you can see the solution file comes up for the course that we have. Click OK, and what that does is it populates the course with all of the correct answers. So now that you've got the correct answers everywhere, throughout the course, so the fault finding, everything that you need has then the correct answers. So as I said, really important that you do this with your teacher login, not the student login, because obviously then you'll give them correct answers, but then you'll also overwrite all of their information that they had before. So this is a good idea to keep this basically to yourself. Don't tell the students about that, or better still, keep the CD somewhere within your office so that only you have access to it. Okay, so I think that's basically everything you need to know to get the system running, and how to install the users for the software, how to do some of the fault finding, and how to use some of the measuring equipment that you have. If you have any other questions, perhaps have a quick look in the operating manual. If you have any other questions that's not explained, that you're not sure about, just send me an email and we can perhaps arrange some time to have a Skype or even a telephone conference. More than happy to do that. So thanks again for purchasing the unit. Hopefully you find it helpful for your classes, and all the best. Thank you.